There's someone you know who never posts. No holiday photos, no life updates, no birthday posts, no throwbacks, no feeling grateful captions. While everyone around them is documenting every moment, they're just living it. And the interesting thing, they don't seem to be suffering. If anything, they seem fine. Sometimes more than fine. So what do they know that the rest of us don't? Because here's the line that's going to stay with you. The less you need to prove your life, the more real it actually feels.
Let me ask you something simple. When was the last time you posted on social media? Now, when was the last time you thought about posting? Opened the camera, maybe even typed a caption, and then quietly closed the app without sharing anything. That gap, that hesitation, that's where the real psychology lives. Because somewhere between picking up the phone and hitting share, your brain runs a calculation so fast you barely notice it happening. Will people like this? Does this make me look good? Is my life interesting enough to earn validation from 247 people I haven't actually spoken to in 3 years? The sociologist Irving Goffman spent his career studying how humans perform for each other, how we wear different masks depending on who's watching, carefully managing the impression we leave behind. But here's the thing. Social media didn't invent that performance. It just gave it a stage, with a billion-person audience, permanent lighting, and no curtain call. One bad caption isn't just a brief, awkward moment. It's archived, accessible. Anyone can find it and judge it at any point in the future. People who don't post have simply decided to skip the stage entirely.
Research tells us that somewhere between 30 and 40% of social media users are what researchers call lurkers, people who scroll consistently but never share anything of their own. That word sounds unsettling, like something suspicious is happening. But a study published in Frontiers in Psychology found something far more mundane and human behind it. When you combine the pressure to present yourself well with the fear of being judged, something in the brain simply gives out. The comparison to others, the anxiety about privacy, the external pressure to participate. Together, they create a specific kind of exhaustion. And that exhaustion quietly converts active participants into silent observers. In other words, your brain isn't being antisocial. It's being protective.
There's a framework in psychology called self-determination theory. The core idea is that humans function best, feel most alive, most motivated, most themselves, when their choices come from within, when they're not being pulled by external pressure or measured by external metrics. Social media is the precise opposite of that environment. It's a validation machine, a system where your self-worth gets quietly, constantly recalibrated based on likes, comments, and reach, where the number next to a post tells you subliminally how much what you shared mattered. People who avoid posting aren't opting out of connection. They're opting out of having their confidence measured by strangers on the internet. They're saying, without announcing it, my sense of self doesn't require an audience.
Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. Even when you know social media is curated, even when you're fully aware that what you're seeing is the highlight reel, the best angle, the right filter, the carefully chosen moment, your brain falls for it anyway. Psychologists have found that passive scrolling alone, without posting a single thing, still triggers automatic social comparison. You see someone's promotion, their engagement announcement, their new house, and even though some rational part of you knows it's constructed, the damage is already done. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between real life and performed life. It just registers. They have more. People who don't post sidestep this attack entirely, not because they're fragile, but because they've recognized that the game is rigged. The angles, the lighting, the story, everyone else controls all of it. Why would you voluntarily enter a competition? And then there's this specific type of person worth paying attention to. They'll spend 3 hours watching a video essay. They'll go deep on documentaries, tutorials, long-form content. But Instagram, TikTok, they don't touch them. Won't post, won't engage, barely open the app. Why the distinction? Because YouTube doesn't ask anything of them. It's consumption without performance. Nobody tracks whether you like the video. Nobody notices you haven't commented in 6 months. There's no social ledger being quietly kept. You're just watching, thinking, existing. All the substance with none of the anxiety. They found the loophole in the system. All the value of content, none of the cost of performance.
People who avoid social media tend to have smaller social circles, and they're completely unbothered by that. Because what they have instead is depth. 5 people who actually know what's happening in their life beats 1,000 people who double-tapped a photo. And research backs this without ambiguity. The quality of your relationships is a significantly stronger predictor of long-term happiness than the quantity of them. 10 real conversations will do more for you than 1,000 reactions ever could. But here's what's easy to miss about these people. Not posting doesn't mean not paying attention. They're often the sharpest observers in the room. They notice the shift in someone's posting frequency, the slightly different tone in a caption, the carefully assembled story that's just fractionally off. They're not checked out. They're watching closely, just without any need to make their watching visible. They prefer understanding to performing, thinking to broadcasting, depth to noise.
Psychologists draw a distinction between 2 types of self-awareness that's worth understanding here. Public self-consciousness is the ongoing preoccupation with how you appear to others, how you're being perceived, evaluated, judged. Private self-consciousness is something quieter, genuine attention to your own thoughts, values, and inner experience. People who don't post lean heavily toward the second one. Instead of asking, how will this look? They're asking, how does this feel? And that shift from external performance to internal honesty creates something rare. When you're not spending mental energy managing a public image, you have actual cognitive space for real self-reflection, for sitting with hard questions, for building an identity that doesn't require anyone else's approval to feel solid. That's not overthinking. That's emotional intelligence. And it produces something genuinely powerful, a sense of self that exists completely independent of an audience.
Here's the reframe that changes everything. Choosing not to post is not the same as hiding. It's not about fear or shame or having nothing worth sharing. It's about power. It's the quiet, deliberate decision that your private life is valuable precisely because it's private. That some experiences don't need to be shared to matter. That some moments actually get better when you're not mentally composing the caption while they're happening. That sunset hits differently when you're not photographing it. That conversation lands deeper when you're actually in it. That achievement feels more yours when it belongs only to you. Researchers have found that people who rarely post tend to show higher levels of self-reflection and are significantly less vulnerable to the emotional volatility that comes from tying your worth to engagement metrics. They're not playing the same game. They're playing a longer one.
And here's the contradiction at the center of all of this. The traits that make someone avoid social media, self-sufficiency, internal security, genuine reflection, are exactly the traits that social media claims it will give you. Connection, community, self-expression, a place to be seen. But what it actually built was a performance economy, where being authentic became the rarest currency, where silence became suspicious, where not posting 3 times a day started to feel stranger than posting constantly. The people who opt out aren't rejecting connection. They're rejecting the terms. They're saying, I'll connect, but in real time, in person, without the show. On my terms, not the platform's.